Oh, what do we have here? A new batch of Jun Shan Yin Zhen. Hey everyone, I'm Sigi and I'm back with another video on yellow tea. This time we are trying the 2023 batch of the Jun Shan Yin Zhen. This tea, I remember the last time I tried it, it was like the 22 version, the previous year's batch. It was quite remarkable, definitely more of a specialty. And yeah, now we're back in 2023 with the same tea from the same producer again, but an entirely new harvest, an entirely new batch, and I am absolutely keen to give it a try. Yellow tea, as you might know, is something I enjoy quite a lot. So whenever I get the chance to try some new yellow tea for the YouTube channel, I'm always a bit excited, and this one, of course, is no exception. So Jun Shan Yin Zhen, much like the Yinzhen white tea, or I think it's silver needle in English, is this beautiful kind of downy looking tea with these lovely little buds we've got here. Just amazing, quite fragrant as well. And after showing it to you, I just need to get in there. So let's do it. First steep coming right up. While this is steeping, what can I say about this tea? Let's start with the price. This one goes for 32 euros for 50 grams on the EU store and $35 for 50 grams on the US store. So compared to some of the other yellow teas, such as the Huoshan Huangcha, this one is a bit more expensive, but of course, the Yinzhen picking is also very high quality, takes a lot of effort, and then the yellow tea processing and all of that as well. But the end result should be well worth it. Again, the last time I had this was a bit of an outstanding tea. Probably not something you'd get to drink every day, but certainly a kind of specialty for special moments. Let's see if this year's batch can live up to that reputation. First off, let's do a bit of smelling. I'm gonna let this sit in here for just a moment while I smell the dry leaves. Very pleasant. It's kind of hard to say what exactly the smell is, but it is very nice. It's also in that kind of comforting direction that other yellow teas tend to go in. Let's see if the wet leaves can paint maybe a bit of a clearer picture. Yeah, this lid and probably the leaves as well. Yeah. These smell closer to what I'm used to from other white teas, with that kind of mellowing layer of yellow tea applied. So where one could expect maybe something like a grassy fragrance in a fresh white tea, this one is maybe more in the direction of something like hay. All right. On top of that, of course, there are also some fragrances that are more in the direction of kind of fruits, maybe a little bit floral, but nothing that's like overly bright. And that, of course, is also kind of a hallmark thing when it comes to yellow tea, right? The additional yellowing process makes it so the tea as a whole kind of comes together, and these really high and bright peak fragrances are transformed into something that's a bit more mellow and round. And I think, especially if we compare this with a fresh white tea Yinzhen, it should be quite easy to spot the differences and kind of get an idea of what this yellowing process actually does to the tea. Hmm. Very interesting mouthfeel is the first thing I notice. And that's that kind of way in which a white tea's fragrance tends to take over your oral cavity is still present to some extent in this Jun Shan Yin Zhen, but it's more gentle. Yeah. The I'm gonna start the second steep right away. We do not have any time to waste here, but the mouthfeel on this is so interesting. It's it almost feels like you're drinking something that's smoother than water. And what fascinates me about that is that this kind of impression of mouthfeel is something that's usually only applied to really well aged, mature puerty. But it's not something I've encountered in yellow tea before, and I feel like the mouthfeel of the previous Junshan Yinzhen was also a bit different. It wasn't quite the same, but this is remarkably smooth while still having these kind of gentle aromatics. And while it might sound a bit unusual, this kind of pleasant layer of hay that's binding it all together. Super interesting tea so far. And I think even more interestingly, this, even though it's from the exact same producer as the 2022 batch that we had on nannuoshan, this just feels different and much more different than I would have expected. Okay, second steep. So we do have a good amount of hairs in there. I'm just from pouring here, I kind of expect the second steep to be a little denser when it comes to mouthfeel. We also let it sit for a little bit. Mm. Before we finish, I'm just gonna do this right away, because then we'll have one really long third steep where we can really see kind of everything this tea might be hiding. If there is anything to hide, of course. Mm-hmm. Certainly slightly thicker mouthfeel this time. I don't quite get that smoother than water type impression anymore. It still feels very round, very pleasant. The aromatics are stronger on this one, especially these kind of more fruity, floral-ish ones. Mm, there is maybe just a little bit of savoriness underneath. But still, cool tea seems quite dynamic so far. So this might actually be one of the yellow teas that responds a bit more to variations in steeping style. Also, quick note, if you're enjoying this new batch of yellow tea reviews, please make sure to leave a like, to subscribe to the nannuoshan YouTube channel if you haven't yet, and write a comment if you can. I'd be curious to hear if any of you have been able to compare Jun Shan Yin Zhen with the white tea version of Yinzhen, and what kind of similarities and differences you found there. Especially if we look at maybe like also very recently harvested Yinzhen compared to one that's already maybe a year old or something. I feel like there might also be some significant differences there. If there are, do let me know down in the comments. I read them all. I try to reply as much as possible, and I always enjoy it when people are interacting with me on here. But now let's get back to the tea. Yeah, it definitely feels like more of a mouthful on this second steep. It's got a fair bit more punch behind it this time. Still not like overly strong or anything. This is still a yellow tea we're talking about, but I I think I do sense a little bit of astringency as well. Okay. Now we finally got the third steep. This one's uh, been sitting in there for a bit. I'm also going to show you the wet leaves of this tea, because I think they do look quite interesting. Here you go. I think what's interesting to note is that there are lots of kind of different colors of leaves. We got some in here, like this one. I'm not sure how well you can see these on the video, but this one is quite green, whereas something like this one is just straight up brown, essentially. So different degrees of browning on these different leaves. And maybe that also produces a more kind of diverse flavor profile overall, rather than all of them being sort of single note. Okay. Third steep going in. This one sat there for quite a while. I'd expect that hint of astringency that I noticed on the second steep to be more present this time, just because we've got an even longer steeping time. Oh, it's changed yet again. On the second steep, I think I noted that the kind of floral and fruity flavors were more in the foreground. On this third steep, the hay note is absolutely kind of center stage. And with it, I am also getting a bit more astringency. There is a slightly kind of vegetal savoriness coming up in the background on this steep. So yeah, this tea, I think one of the big things I can mention after these three steeps is it seems to be very dynamic. It seems like it responds quite well to changes in steeping time or just general brewing approach. So if you're somebody who enjoys either white tea or a yellow tea already, and you kind of enjoy playing around with the way you prepare your tea, and you want to experience the same tea in a lot of different ways, I think this would be a great candidate. It seems like there are lots of different kind of flavor profiles you can get out of this particular tea. And if you want to explore them all and all of the kind of different combinations and how they can present themselves, then this might absolutely be the tea for you. Now, I should mention that, of course, this kind of experimentation tends to come with a more focused brewing style, because if you're trying to find all these different like flavors, fragrances, and whatnot, then it also makes sense that you would be paying attention to your tea more actively. And with this being such a high quality tea, I think it can take up the role of a tea that would enable such experimentation quite well. So if you're looking for something that you can drink in a focused manner and that might end up surprising you even after you've had it for like 10 times already, this Jun Shan Yin Zhen might be for you. I, for my part, certainly enjoyed it. It is yet another wonderful batch of yellow tea from the same producer as the one from last year. I hope you enjoyed my short impression of this new batch of tea, and we will see each other next time. Goodbye.